because there were so many questions, good ones about the planes going from Poland to Ukraine and whether we'd be the interlocutor. On Sunday, when the Secretary of State was asked about this possibility of a plane swap, he said, quote, "That gets a green light, and we're working with Poland on possibly backfilling their military equipment." What changed between him saying that on Sunday and Tory Newland and others yesterday, the Pentagon saying, actually, that's not tenable?
Well, I don't think that's exactly how I would see how the events transpired. I believe that Secretary Blinken was asked about Poland giving planes to the Ukrainians. That's certainly a choice they make as a sovereign country. We've never opposed that, never stood in the way of that. We still do not today. What we're talking about here, though, is the proposal yesterday, as you know, was for these planes to fly from a U.S. airbase in Germany, and we have understandable concerns about that. So what we're talking about now through military channels is the operational concerns, how this could work, the logistics of it, and those conversations are ongoing.
Well, you won't hear about it from most Republicans, but we're sleepwalking toward a total disaster in the Ukraine. Joe Biden asked for $33 billion to support President Zelensky's government against Russia. The Democrats in Congress then one-upped Biden and offered $40 billion. Then the vast majority of the House and Senate Republicans got on board. Dan Crenshaw is a huge fan. He's bragging about, quote, investing in the destruction of our adversary's military without losing a single American troop. Strikes me as a good idea. You should feel the same, unquote. So Dan Crenshaw is basically saying that we're only doing this to cause as much suffering and devastation as possible. Kill as many Russians as we can. And it doesn't matter if tens or even hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians die in the bargain. Just beat up on Russia until they feel pushed into a corner and lash out. That's the plan. Activate military-industrial complex. It'll be Syria all over again. All of this might be defensible if we were acting to defend a real democracy from unprovoked aggression, but we aren't. Ukraine has always been a corrupt sham democracy. As for the Ukrainian army, they're hardly admirable either. They were already employing literal, actual Nazis in their armed forces when this war started, and even before. Lauren Witzke is our executive producer here at the Stu Peters Show. She has more on this story, and she joins us now. Literal cannibalism. Now these Nazis in Ukraine, at the command of this leather high heels wearing globalist homo, are eating people. This is true.
This guy actually thought that he was eating a Russian soldier. Turns out it was just terrible in itself. But then he actually realized, I guess they found out later, that it was one of his own.
This is probably the biggest story of our lifetimes, and virtually nobody's talking about it. Except for James Roguski, who's been tracking this pandemic treaty and organizing resistance against it, especially against a set of proposals called the International Health Amendments.
The amendments to the International Health Regulations. Now, they submitted this in January, and then it went into they put a cloak of invisibility over it. Nobody covered it. From May 22nd to the 28th, they'll be holding the World Health Assembly, which is all of the nations coming to Geneva to decide your future, right? And one of the things that is on the agenda is these amendments. Just like when Nancy Pelosi said, pass the bill, you can read it later.
Yeah.
It seems like that's what they were trying to do. Just have this thing nice and quietly, get approved. And then, Merry Christmas, 6 months later, after the time period to reject it goes by. Oh, congratulations. We've had the Great Reset.
Does it override the Constitution? Does it make the Constitution worthless? Not that anybody respects that from the left anymore anyways.
No. Okay. Unless you're hypnotized into seeing, not being able to see what they're doing. When we got into the WHO, Harry Truman signed a joint resolution with the, full Congress, the Senate and the House. And the wording in that, it very clearly states that, we'll join the WHO, but you can't tell us to do a damn thing. Okay. They can make recommendations, but even if these amendments are passed, there's a 6-month period where in Article 61, it clearly states that any nation can just tell the WHO to take their amendments and put them where the sun don't shine. And this is the tip of the spear, Stu. On Article 12, Section 2, Line 6, they want to remove language from the current regulations that essentially say each nation is sovereign each nation has the right to declare an emergency for the nation if they want to. And if they don't want to, the WHO can go take a hike. Real simple question to your audience. Do you think it's appropriate for unelected officials to hand over the decision-making process from each nation to Tedros Ghebreyesus, who's seeking to be the dictator general of the World Hypnosis Organization? Or do you think that's treason? And yeah, I said the word treason. This has all been done in silence, and it's very occult, it's very hidden, and we're just trying to shed some light on what we're seeing in public documents.
Yeah, anybody found guilty of treason should be executed.
Probably going to not be able or just not answer, but we're going to ask him anyway.
Go for it.
Let's Gustavo Cardenas and Jorge Alberto Fernandez. Do we know why they were released?
I don't have any more details on that I can provide.
U.S. officials who were part of that delegation, are they all back from Venezuela?
I believe yes. I will confirm that for you, though.
Could we anticipate the imminent release of any other Americans who are being held there right now?
Well, as you know, as we are working on bringing any unjustly detained Americans home from any country in the world, whether it's Venezuela, Russia, Afghanistan, Syria, China, Iran, and elsewhere, we typically don't discuss that because it puts at risk the potential for bringing individuals home. But yes, we are still going to work on bringing others home who did not return on the plane last night.
A high-ranking member of Juan Guaido's team told the Miami Herald this week, quote, "It is foolish to think that Maduro will quit Russia when a great deal of the corruption funds have been deposited in Russia and when Russia furthermore is its greatest ally. This is a mistake. To buy oil from Maduro is the same as buying oil from Putin." Two things. I think I know where you'll go on the first one, but I want to give you the opportunity to respond. If the United
Spend
States...
so much time together, Ed. I appreciate it.
If the United States recognizes Guaido as the leader of Venezuela, why did the U.S. feel it necessary to negotiate with the Maduro regime? And was the Guaido team made aware of the plans for U.S. officials to go to Venezuela to meet with the Maduro government before they went?
On the last, I just don't have anything more to convey to you about private diplomatic conversations. I would note that one of the steps that was announced yesterday was Maduro saying he was willing to resume talks with Venezuela's interim president. Certainly, we would note that. And obviously, part of our effort here, as you now know, was related to the health and well-being of American citizens detained in Venezuela. Hence, we had discussions with those who were detaining them. Go ahead.
Thank you. Why did you guys decide to rebrand the rise in gas prices as the hashtag Putin price hike?
I mean, if you want to use that on Fox, I welcome that. But
I think it'll get a lot of airtime because we have heard the president warn for months the gas prices were rising because of the supply chain and because of post-pandemic demand. If you guys knew for months that this was going to be the hashtag Putin price hike, why are we just hearing that now?
Well, Peter, if we go back to 6 months ago, I don't think anybody was predicting we would be exactly where we are as it relates to Russia and Ukraine. As you know, that events in the world, including the invasion by Russia of a foreign country, does prompt instability and volatility in the global oil markets. And there are all sorts of different issues that can impact that. That's what we're seeing now. Outside economists and analysts have conveyed and said publicly that Russia's invasion, Russia's buildup of troops, President Putin's decision to do that very early this year led to a lot of the instability and volatility in the oil markets. You don't have to take my word for it. So therefore, if President Putin's buildup of military troops is leading to volatility and an increase in oil and prices, hence you have a Putin pump, gas price pump.
Okay. You and the president are both talking. This represents a fundamental misunderstanding as to how this process works.
Well, first of all,
we will not fail. Our country will thrive and prosper again.